Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going back to our roots and recreating a former coaster, a defunct coaster called the Flip Flap Railway. And what that is the first ever looping coaster in the United States. Not in the world, but the United States. There were some in Europe that were too dangerous, so they were torn down. And 20 years later, in the late 1800s, you got the Flip Flap Railway at Coney Island, and that is what you're seeing being built here. An extremely weird coaster, or naturally it was the first of its kind. I decided to go with the side friction coaster in the game just because it's obviously the most vintagey coaster, so it kind of fits in that sense. But also it doesn't have upstop wheels, so it's accurate in that sense, which the thought of a coaster that goes upside down not having upstop wheels, and if you don't know what upstop wheels, I'll show you a little picture here. Basically it's what keeps a coaster, attached to the track. It's that third wheel on the bottom, and that's why it's called a side friction coaster in the game, is because it doesn't have an upstop wheel. So the fact that they were building coasters in the late 1800s that were going upside down without upstop wheels, incredibly dangerous, unbelievable, frankly. Along with that, this coaster was very similar to the ones in Europe that were built like 20 years prior in the mid 1800s. It's called centrifugal railways, I believe. They have circular loops coming in at pretty hot speeds, and this coaster specifically is rumored to, this could be exaggerated, but this is what the Wikipedia says, it could have potentially had 12 G's worth of force when you go through that loop, and that's just absurd. Most coasters nowadays you're seeing go through 3, maybe 4. If you're anywhere near 6, that's pretty extreme. So the fact that this was potentially near 12 is absurd, frankly. But some people, I saw some scientists kind of corrected that it might have been exaggerated, and truthfully it was probably closer to 6 to 8, which is just still insane. I don't know what they were doing in the early 1900s, late 1800s, but they were just hungry for crazy coasters. Yeah, this coaster specifically, the loop was 7.6 meters, which is about 25 feet in diameter. Very small. I mean, you can kind of see me struggling a bit, especially earlier in the time lapse, with getting the right height. That's what that big asterisk looking thing is me trying to get the right height to make sure it's proportional. There's really only one photo that I could find of this coaster, and this was probably the toughest part, was there's not that much footage or imagery. I mean, obviously we're talking about the late 1800s here, and this coaster didn't even last like 20 years. It was torn down in the early 1900s along with the park it was in. So I have this model, and I'll attach a photo here, but this model that's in the Disney World boardwalk lobby, it's very cool. This was super integral to helping me recreate this, but really I have like no sense of what was around the coaster, so I kind of took some creative liberties. I had to. So you'll see in the time lapse there's like a helter-skelter, there's some shrubbery, some ticket booths, stuff like that, trying to make it feel like the early 1900s, late 1800s. But this cinematic should be fun to make. The actual coaster itself was fun to make, albeit extremely challenging. It was hard to, I'm putting the wooden paneling under the track, and this is kind of an assumption. This is the best I could see. I saw some people had already made this in the first Planet Coaster, but not in the second one. And I'll realize later when I put the American flags on the loop that there's no American flags in the game. There's no flags at all that have custom billboards like in the first game. So that was problematic. So you'll see me in some time actually make an American flag out of squares. But yeah, this is a very funky coaster. Obviously it's an extremely simple layout just because it was a one-trick pony. Putting cables down right now. I mean, these are seen in some images, but these were also in the model, and I guess this keeps it grounded. I don't know. I mean, this screams safety issues. Some people reported having whiplash and neck injuries going on this ride, so this thing was no joke. But to make it in the game was pretty fun, I must say. And I always love a great excuse to make a fun cinematic, and making a cinematic based off the early 1900s, late 1800s is going to be fun. So I'm curious what I end up coming up with. I guess you guys will see in a bit. So I'm gonna let the time lapse play for just a little bit. You can see me making that American flag, kind of like I mentioned before. I'll chip in a little bit, but enjoy the time lapse. It was really fun to make, and what a weird coaster. All right, here we actually are, cutting to a lot more decoration than what I showed in the time lapse. Kind of what I mentioned, it took some liberty with some of the decoration around the roller coaster. There just really isn't that much out there to help me out with making it as realistic as possible. So the coaster itself, as far as I know, is as accurate as I can make it. The surrounding areas I took my own freedoms with. But what a fun coaster to make. I love kind of all, I mean, I got to do things that typically coasters you don't get to do, like this custom station platform. That was the best I could see from the images, to make this kind of wooden platform with this custom catwalk, which is just, I love this. So unique, so much fun to do. The American flags was a little bit of a pain. I can't believe that they don't have custom flags in the game yet, but hopefully they'll add that soon. And then just obviously the fact that I got to make a side friction coaster go upside down is how is that not fun? As difficult as it kind of was. But I kind of wanted to touch upon it because you probably were watching this in the time lapse and like, why is he making Santa's sleigh? I'll try and zoom in on the photo so you can kind of see what I was referencing, but I believe this is like actually what it looked like. This seating platform was raised a little bit higher, but there really was like this like red carriage underneath the train, which I thought was super strange, but I tried to recreate it as best as I could. Let's watch this thing go in motion real quick, and then we'll cut over to that cinematic. But I really hope you guys enjoy this type of content. I know it kind of is veering away from the stadiums that I used to make. I'm trying to kind of open the palette a little bit more. This is really fun for me, so if you guys are enjoying it, please let me know. Please subscribe, please like, please comment. I love hearing your guys' feedback. But this thing's about to go take this hill and go into a loop. It goes in at a really nice speed. I mean, it almost, you could argue it's a little slow at the top for a side friction coaster. I mean, the fact that there's no upstop wheels while it's upside down is just horrifying to me. I kind of clipped through the rails, but whatever. That's just absurd. But yeah, I think I'll end the time lapse there, and we can cut over to the cinematic. Again, please comment your thoughts and ideas, anything you'd like to see in the future, what your thoughts on this are, what your thoughts on maybe the wheel video, Falcon's Fury recreation. Rain them in on me. Would love it. Take care, guys.